Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going fabulous and you're having a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to create 3 cards with the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit from March 2021. Now I was excited. I'm a book reader, I have to say. Actually, my favorite author I started reading books when I was in high school. My favorite author was Sidney Sheldon. He was not only an author though, he was I believe he wrote and directed Heart to Heart. You know, it's a very old show for all you kiddos. You probably don't know what show that is, but it had Robert Wagner and Stephanie Powers. Love that show. They're doing the reruns on it now, so I watch it often. But anyway, I'm jibber-jabbering again. But I love books. And I encourage my children to read books. Actually, they think I'm crazy because I bought the Boxcar Children. And we went on a camping trip one time and I read the entire book to them. And they're teenagers, granted. But so I was excited about this kit. We're going to take a look at the kit and then we're going to create 3 cards with it. You get 7 frame cuts that will die cut out each of the images in the stamp set. Now there are some images, like some thoughts, that don't have dies, of course, but you can add them to your projects as if they're coming out of books. But you get the little kitty cat, you get the little end table, you get the little stack of books, you get a lady that's laying down, and then you also get the lady that's sitting in the chair. And then you get a little boy that's reading a book with his feet crossed at his bare feet. Well, yeah, I would say they're bare feet, but they're so cute. The tree in this stamp set, it's a 6x8 stamp set, is wonderful. It's huge, and it will fit an A2 size card base. You even get the die that will cut that out. How about that? There's a lot of inspiration in that tree. There are books in the tree, there's hot air balloons, there's flowers, there's even a coffee cup. So I just think it's pretty neat that Hero Arts came out with this. Okay, we're going to take a look at what else is in the kit and then we're going to get to creating. You get a water brush. I'm going to take it out of the package and fill it up. I would say this is a medium tipped water brush. Love these. You just unscrew the cap. I use a water bottle to fill it up. Just makes it faster and less messy. Screw the top back on and you can see the brush size here. I'd say, yeah, it's a medium. So that is a nice little after the kit investment piece. Kits are still available too, guys. Next you get a package of some I want to call it jute cord, but it's not. It's hemp cord, but it's a rainbow hemp cord. The colors all continue with this hemp cord, and you get a little bit less than 20 feet. So that's a lot of cording. You also get 6, I'm going to call them bookmarks, but they're actually large tags. They measure 7 inches long by almost 3 inches. So they can be bookmarks and tags. But I think when I first saw these, I immediately thought this would look really nice on a Slimline card. You can see that it's a little too large for a regular A2 size card. So we're going to make a Slimline card. So yeah, they're 7 inches by a little less here than 3 inches. So we're going to create a Slimline bookmark card. Now I was also excited about the ink pad this month. You get a full-size ink pad. This is a reactive rainbow colored ink pad. I'm going to do a little swatch here, but you can see they run together and that doesn't bother me. I think when you have a rainbow pad like that, it's gonna happen, but I think the colors didn't blend together. You can see here, and actually as I swatched this, I liked the way it looked, like almost like the colors were kind of dripping. I'm going to actually keep this paper and we're going to do another swatch. I wanted to use my water brush and pull out the color to show you what it does. Now I'm doing my little swatching here on Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. I don't think this is the best cardstock for watercoloring. I think if you were to use watercolor cardstock, or you could see if you pick up the color and bring it to the paper, I think it would work out better. Not on the paper and then spread it out. You can see it's very pale. I'm going to actually do a little bit more swatching to show you what this stuff does. It's pretty neat. I'm going to bring in an acrylic block. We're going to do a little stamping on the acrylic block, and then I'll pick up the ink from the block and then put it on the same cardstock. But I would use maybe a Bristol cardstock, or again some watercolor cardstock if you're going to do some watercoloring. I'm going to use this ink to color in my images today. But you can see this is the red. You mix the red with the yellow, you get an orange. So in between that color there is a little bit of an orange, but I'm going to pick up some yellow. And you can see how bright and vibrant it is if you were to watercolor with this. Makes it so neat. There's your green, and you get a real pretty blue. Then you also get a real pretty purple. The purple's real vibrant. But there's your 5 colors, and you can see how it blends with the water brush really nicely. So we are going to set our little swatch aside, and along with everything else, I'm going to keep my ink on my block. That's the block we're going to use to color in our image. So we'll do a little stamping, and I think this is pretty neat. They included this in the kit. It's a great value. So we are going to bring in the Misty and some Tim Holtz or Ranger watercolor cardstock. I'm using this because it's a whiter color, and I wanted more white in the background. Usually I use the Canson XL watercolor cardstock, but it's on the ivory side. So there is a textured side and a smooth side. I'm going to be stamping on the smooth side. This is a pretty intricate tree, and there's a large surface area to stamp, so I think the smooth side is going to work out a little bit better. I'm going to bring in my VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp my tree. I actually got a new ink pad, and the ink pad, I don't know if this is an older one or a newer one, but it kind of looks like my Memento ink pad. But this is VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'm going to stamp this. It's a sticky ink. I'm going to stamp it a few times, move that magnet out of the way, and tack this down with my tape runner, which I need my other tape runner. That one ran out. But we'll tack this down and ink it up one more time, and it stamps beautifully. While the ink is still a little bit wet, I'm going to bring in some clear embossing powder. And we're expecting rain for like 4 days. So if you hear rain or a little fuzzy noise in the background, guys, that's just the rain hitting the roof. I'm in the sunroom, and the sunroom roof has a different roof, and so it's a little bit louder in here. So I'm sorry if you hear the rain. Okay. We have clear embossing powder going over that VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I'll use my heat gun and melt it. And this is going to work out nice because it creates like a little well or a barrier for when you watercolor, and it won't blend into other areas, which is nice because it's so detailed. Next, I'm going to take one of my tags here, and I'm going to overhang it on the Misty. I'm going to just stamp half of a tree on it, and I wanted to make sure that the tree wasn't hitting the tab on top, or it wasn't hitting the banner on the bottom. I'm just inking half of this up, and we'll stamp this on the right side of our fishtail banner here. And I'm going to bring in scratch paper. I didn't want the ink. With VersaFine, I have a tendency to get ink everywhere. So this is just, the scratch paper is just going to help it from getting on the banner part of my tag here, or my bookmark, I should say. I think that looks great. I'm going to bring in my clear embossing powder again and go over that. And then I'm also going to stamp these images for the rest of my card projects today. I have the girl in the chair, the girl laying down on her back, the little boy with his little feet crisscrossed in the back, the stack of books, and then the end table here. We're going to add clear embossing powder to this too, and we'll melt that embossing powder. So everything is embossed with clear embossing powder. So we have our images here, our tree, and then we also have our bookmark. Okay, now I'm going to, I didn't leave the coloring in, guys. I left a little bit of it. Since there's no brown, you could make brown with this, very easy. But just to save time, I'm going to bring in some brown zig markers to color the tree trunk, and then I brought in a flesh color to color in the skin of my my people there. But I am going to use that water brush to add color to the images inside the tree along with the tree leaves, and I'll use the ink on the block also to color in the chair and the clothes on my people up there. but I'm just mixing the colors, spreading out that color, and then I think we are good to go. You can see here where I want to bring in that green and color in the leaves. But in the tree, you'd be surprised what's in there. There is a snail, there's butterflies, there's hearts, there are lots of books, guys. There is even a potted plant. There is some eyeglasses. There's a hot air balloon. There is a little guy in a parachute in there too. So a lot of imagination in that tree. Okay, I messed up on the little girl that was laying on her back. I went outside the lines and I couldn't clean it up, so we're probably not going to use her. But the rest of the images we are. I'm going to die cut out this tree on this panel. The tree that's on my bookmark, we're going to leave that as it is. I'm not going to die cut anything out there. But we'll just line these up, tape them down, and then run them through the die cut machine. So these images are good to go. Okay, for our first card, again, when I saw the bookmarks, I thought this would make a perfect slimline card. So I thought we could add a bookmark on top of our card, kind of give it a dual purpose. So we are going to bring in some white cardstock. This is how I make my slimline cards. I know there's different sizes, but I like to create a 3.5 inch by 8.5 inch slimline. So what I do is I score at the 3.5 inch mark on a full size sheet of cardstock. You should actually use a full size scoreboard, but this was handy, so I used my mini one, but that's why I flipped it over. But I'm going to go ahead and reinforce that score line, and I'll take my entire paper here, bring in my paper trimmer, and then I'll trim at the 3.5 inch mark. Then I like to do this because it gives me that extra piece as an extra panel and there's no waste. I know if you were to do it lengthwise on a full-size cardstock sheet, I have wasted cardstock. Well, it's not wasted, I throw them in the scrap bin, but this is nice because I have extra size panel. And there are some smaller strips that you can use for sentiments also. But I just trim the panel strip down to 3 inches by 8 inches. This way it leaves me about 1/4 inch. That strip we're going to use in just a bit. Okay, that's the piece that we trimmed off the right side here. Now I remember I like this, my little swatch. I'm going to go ahead and trim this down, and I'm also going to bring in some pattern paper. Now I have to tell you, there is a 6x6 stamp set that Hero Arts came out as an add-on for the kit this month. It has text print, and if you were to stamp on some black cardstock and heat emboss with white, I think it would be perfect for these cards. But I didn't get a chance to get that, so I just found some pattern paper with some scripty print on it. I trimmed it down to cover that panel that we created. I had to do it in 2 different sections. There is a seam, but we're going to cover it up, so bear with me. We're going to cheat a little bit. I wasn't sure where I wanted to put this on my slimline card. I opted to go in that top corner, but ended up, I think we're going to put it in the middle. This is basically going to be almost like our layout. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and trim down this rainbow piece. I trimmed it down a little bit, but I'm going to trim it down a little bit more just so we have about a 1 inch strip. Okay, once this is trimmed down, I'm going to take that strip of white cardstock from the slimline card that we trimmed, and that's going to be like a belly band on front of our card. Okay, to do that, I'm going to kind of figure out my placement. I wanted a little bit of the tree trunk showing, so that's why my tag's on my printed paper. I'm just kind of positioning it where I want it, and then once I'm happy, I can go ahead and fold it over here and then create a band for my my bookmark. I didn't want to glue it down, I didn't want to create a pocket, so I think this is the best way to do it. I went ahead and tacked it down to the back side of or actually to the front of my card base. You can see here it's right up to the edge, and then I'm going to take the other end and just fold it over. So basically we created a belly band that's on the front of a card base. Pretty easy so far. Okay, next I'll go ahead and add adhesive behind my panel. This is going to go on top of that belly band, and then we're going to make it center. Once that's tacked down, now my band is a little bit higher than the seam, but I think I can still get away with it. We'll see. I might end up moving it in just a little bit, but we'll see. I went ahead and added my rainbow piece. We're going to add some adhesive to close this band here. That way it's stationary. Now I put that rainbow piece in the center, and I think we might adjust that in a minute. And just, you can see how you could put the bookmark in there. And speaking of bookmarks, what I'm going to do here is wrap around some of this hemp cord around my card base, and then I'm going to pull it down after it's wrapped around. I looped it, must have been 6 or 7 times. I'm going to take some more of that hemp cord and trim down maybe about a 16-inch piece, fold it in half, and then I'm going to slide off this piece, so we have lots of loopies here, and I'm going to pinch it in the middle. So we have basically like a bow almost, and then I'll take this 16-inch piece and tie a knot right in the center with it. You can see here. Now, you probably think, what is she doing? That's a very funny looking bow, but this is how I'm going to make a little tassel. I think I don't think I've ever made a tassel for my card for you guys, but this is how I make them. Now, this could be completely wrong, and there might be a way easier way to make them, but I just wanted to share with you how I make my tassels. Okay, I'm going to take another piece, a small piece of that hemp cord, and I grabbed the bow where I tied the knot. I pulled it, and then I did take another piece and wrapped it around 2 or 3 times and tied a knot. Okay, so now we have the top of our tassel here, and we still have the loopies at the bottom. I'm going to trim the tails of that knot that we created, and then I'll take my scissors and just cut all those loops. If you want to make your tassel a little bit longer, you would just make your loops wider. Okay, so I'm going to give my little tassel a haircut on the bottom, and then it's not the fanciest tassel, but it's one I think that's super colorful, and it would look great on my bookmark. So that was just an afterthought, but I thought I would share that with you. I did already add twine to the top of my bookmark, but this is funner, I think. Now it's going to make your card base a little more bulky for mailing, but I think it's just going to make it extra special. I'm threading it through and then tying a knot, and then with the leftover pieces, I got that long piece hanging over, the leftover pieces, I'm going to go ahead and loop them and tie a bow. And that is my bookmark. I'm not going to do anything else to it. I think if the recipient wants to put their name on it or a little message, they could, but that's my little bookmark. I'm just going to slide it underneath that belly band to keep it in place. Now I did add a little bit of adhesive behind it, that way it doesn't shift during mailing, but I also stamped the sentiment on that rainbow piece. The sentiment for this card, I put, "You are the author of your own story," and I just stamped it with black ink. I popped up my little guy here with foam adhesive. I originally had him on my bookmark, but I thought it'd be too bulky for a book, so I'm going to put it on my band here, but I'm going to cheat a little bit and stretch out my band. So I cut it between the yellow and red ink, and then this way I can cover up that gap with this little guy here, and I can stretch that rainbow from all the way to the left all the way to the right. But that is my Slimline card. Okay, now we are going to make card number 2. We're going to do a different style card too. I'm taking the tree and I'm going to cut it straight down the center. This is the best way for me to do it, is put it on my grid mat and draw pencil lines at the top and bottom, and then I'll bring in my paper trimmer and I'll trim it down right down the middle. And then I thought for my next project we'd make a gatefold card with a belly band. So so that's what we're going to do now. I have a rounded corner panel that I created using that same printed pattern paper. Next, we're going to create our gatefold card. To do this is super easy. I'm bringing in my scoreboard. I'm going to score at the 2 1/8 inch mark. Just going to grab my bone folder here, and then we'll score it. I'm going to flip my panel around and score again at the 2 1/8 inch mark. And then we can fold in the left and the right, and then it creates double doors, basically. We're going to reinforce those score lines here. Okay, there is our card base. Now, of course, you're going to need something to close it, so that's where the belly band's going to come in. I'm going to take my paper trimmer and take this panel that has rounded edges, and I'm going to trim it at the 2 1/8 inch mark. Actually, no, I take that back. At the 1 3/4 inch mark. I did that. Basically, I'm taking a 1/2 inch out of it. This way we have little panels to go on the left and the right of our double doors. We'll adhere those. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my tape runner and adhere the left and right tree on our double doors. And then that is the front of our card. And you can write a really nice message in there if you wanted to. Okay. Well, of course you want to. You're going to send it to somebody, you would want to put a message in there. Next, I have a 1 1/4 inch piece of vellum, and I cut it. My vellum sheets are 8 1/2 by 11, so I cut it lengthwise. I'm going to take a circle die and die cut out a circle with that same black and white pattern paper, and I also cut out a circle with a slightly larger circle with white cardstock. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the vellum underneath my card base, flip over my strip of vellum. We're going to secure it with tape, and then I'm going to go ahead and add my circles right in top. Now I did trim down the left and right of the vellum just so you can see the ends underneath, and then I did make sure that when I added the tape runner to those circles that it would only be horizontal and hit the vellum. That way you can slide it on and off. But I popped up my little books here, added that to the circle, and now we need a sentiment. For this card, I'm going to use black cardstock. So I stamped with Versamark ink, and I stamped the sentiment that says, "You're literally amazing." I blocked it off after I heat set it. I did use white embossing powder for that. And then we're going to go ahead and add our bookmark, or a little stack of books right on top of our sentiment there. And you can see how easily this little belly band slides up and down. I just thought it would be just something a little bit different to do with our little page turner kit today. So that is project number 2. And then for my last card, we are going to jump in and just create a traditional card. I have actually this is my card base, and I'm going to be using a fancy decorative edge die. This is from Hero Arts. If I can, this is probably discontinued, guys. I'm not sure. If I can find it, I'll list it below. It's really pretty. But I'm going to die cut out a little scalloped border with that. And then I have some leftover black and white pattern paper. I'm going to actually use my rounded corner rectangle dies to cut out a small panel with this. Okay, I did use that swatch that I created. I just trimmed it down, put it on my card base, and then we're going to cover the seam of it with our black and white pattern paper here. And then I'll add adhesive behind our little scallop border, and I adhered that to the seam line, and then added my little girl in a chair with her little end table there. Now we're going to stamp the sentiment. I'm going to use my ink pad and create a rainbow adventure. So I did block off the second half of my sentiment. This way I could stamp it, and it's stamped beautifully. So I have a rainbow sentiment that says adventure. And then I'm basically going to do the opposite. I'm going to take another piece of that masking tape, cover up the adventure, and then I'm going to finish off the sentiment with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink here. We'll stamp that second half, remove our masking paper, and stamp this right above, actually right below our adventure, just so we have a little bit of extra color on here. You can see how that looks off. I'm going to go ahead and block that off using my paper trimmer. And then I popped it up and put it on top of my sentiment. Now I did a little rearranging. You can see here. I took my little, my decorative fancy edge border, that little white lacy piece. Instead of putting it on the seam, I scooted it over about a 1/2 of an inch, and I thought we would bring in some of our colorful hemp cord. I'm going to go ahead and punch a hole at the very top and thread it through, and then I tied a bow. This way I have a little bit of color on the seam of that pretty scalloped edge. I just wanted to use some of that pretty hemp cord, so that was a great way to do that. But that is my third project today, and then we have all three kind of, well, this one's a normal card for me, but I thought the Slimline card would be super fun with a little bookmark. And again, I have a little bit of adhesive behind it just to help tack it down with my little tassel. And then I have my little Gatefold card with the belly band. So these are my projects today. I hope you enjoyed it. The kits are still, surprisingly, the kits are still available, guys. And if you're interested, I'll link them down below. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining me. We will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.